Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for everyone, wherever you might be. Back again at Let's Talk About Data Show with me, Lydia Ray, Senior Analytics Solution Architect at AWS, and also the host for Let's Talk About Data Show. I am streaming live here from London, UK. So, wherever you are, pop up in the chat. Tell me like where you are streaming from, and also like tell me what's the weather like. I never used to ask that when I was back home in Indonesia, but in the UK people like to ask like what is the weather like? Is it raining? Is it snowing? Is it cold? Just for your information, it's wet and cold in London at the moment, unfortunately. Okay. Everyone, if you streaming, I'm back. Sorry if I'm lost the connection. Apologize. But like, yes, if you know us before, or you haven't know us before, there is our community page, community.iws/livestream/ let's talk about data. You can find our previous shows. We're talking all it anything about data, Gen AI, you name it. Okay, so now today with me we have Raj. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Lydia. Hello, my name is Raj. I'm a principal TAM based out of New York, and I work with customers in media and entertainment segment. I've been in this show, Let's Talk About Data, multiple times. I regularly speak at the Repost Live as well. It's all about Sagemaker, data analytics, and so on. So I'm really happy to be here in this show, especially because we're going to talk about something cool with regards to generative AI and how you can get all the benefits of generative AI and get innovative with generative AI as you bring the data closer to the platform for generation. Yeah, cool.
Thank you. I see a lot of people in the chat, like from Barcelona, Iowa, Austin, Texas, all over the world. Hello, everyone. Nice to have you on the show today. And during the show, if you have questions, pop up in the chat and we will bring them to the show and then Raj will answer it. Okay. So I'm gonna straight into the point. Like we talk, I posted on LinkedIn already about next generation of SageMaker. I talk about it in reInvent recap about next gen of SageMaker, but everyone's still asking like what is exactly about.
Yep,
So I'm gonna start with that question, Raj. What is the SageMaker?
absolutely, absolutely. So generally, like people who have been working with SageMaker for the past few years, right? If you're looking to build a machine learning model, even before generative AI, right? If you're looking at building machine learning models, then your go-to platform is going to be Amazon SageMaker, right? So SageMaker is the center for all your data, analytics, and AI. And SageMaker delivers an integrated experience for analytics and AI with unified access to all your data, right? So this is all with regards to SageMaker, right? In that is in general. Yeah, go ahead, Lydia.
So I'm just trying to clarify, right? Because if someone's new, never heard SageMaker before, and heard before, like in the past we have SageMaker, but
Mhm.
now this is the new SageMaker. What what is the difference between them? If you
Sure.
can simplify.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let me bring up my screen, Lydia, so that it's easy
Yeah.
for people. We are not going to bring in any PPTs today. We're only going to go through all the landing pages of different AWS services and then dive into the console. The reason for that is that when people go back and then they want to refer it, it becomes easy for them to check in the landing pages. Yeah. So coming back to your question with regards to what changed with SageMaker, right? If you're seeing my screen, this is the SageMaker landing page, as we all know. Now, the change is that we have renamed it as SageMaker AI. So, whatever that you're used to with regards to build, train and deploy machine learning models that continues to be within SageMaker. All the steps that all remains unchanged, right? The only change is that
Yeah.
we just renamed it as SageMaker AI. That is the first part. To answer your question, so you asked about what is this next gen SageMaker, what is the new thing, right? So essentially, we also introduced during the reinvent, right, in December
Yeah.
2024, we introduced the next gen SageMaker. So this is the landing page. The
Okay.
key difference here is that as we are seeing a lot of Gen AI applications and
Yeah.
also a lot of analytics happening, which is powering these generative AI applications or AI in general, right?
Yeah.
We understand that it becomes very imperative to bring the data closer to the platform to enable innovation. Yeah. And that's the reason that what you see here, the new SageMaker, right? The current SageMaker, as I told you, which got renamed to SageMaker AI, which is it's all available as is today. However, if you are looking at developing new Gen AI applications, right? Or if
Yeah.
you're looking at coming up with a new app and you're looking to integrate it with your organizational data, right? You want to build something new.
Okay.
In that case, you will use the next gen SageMaker because it brings closer access to your data. We'll see how, but at a very high level, that's the difference.
Okay, just trying to summarize, like for those who just joining. So we used to have SageMaker, the old SageMaker, and now we have next generation of SageMaker. The old SageMaker is only working around like machine learning model and so on, and it's still available within the new SageMaker, but it is called not SageMaker AI. While the new SageMaker now bring the whole family of data persona, data workload together within the umbrella of SageMaker.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so we kind of touch a bit about like the new SageMaker, and then you mentioned a little bit like what is changing. That is now the ultimate SageMaker becomes
Mhm,
SageMaker AI
mhm.
under the umbrella of the whole SageMaker. And then if you can share with me like what is the highlights of this new SageMaker? Yes, you say that it's bring everything together, all the data workloads, but
Yeah.
can you share a little bit the highlights?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to still stick on with the landing page so it's easy
Okay.
for people to reference later. So when we talk about the highlights of new Amazon SageMaker, right? At
Yeah.
its core, Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio, it's like a single data and AI development environment. It brings together the functionality of the tools that range from like standalone studios, query editor, visual tools that we have today
Yeah.
within Athena, EMR, Glue, Redshift, managed workflow for Apache Airflow, and the existing studio. So if you're trying to correlate that, right? So what do I mean? We will cover that in a detailed demo, but broadly, let me share that. Yeah. So if you're seeing my
Okay.
screen, let me log into the SageMaker dashboard. So this is
Okay.
essentially your new SageMaker UI, right? And
Yeah.
if you are used to the SageMaker AI in general, you will know about the domains. This is where you create domains. Same experience, but essentially the core difference that you see with the next gen SageMaker is that you see SageMaker Unified Studio and then you see DataZone. So SageMaker Unified Studio is built
Okay.
on top of Amazon DataZone that helps you discover data and put it to work with an integrated experience across the different AWS services that you're familiar with, right? That could be around SQL Analytics or generative AI
Okay.
applications and so on. Yeah.
Can I say that SageMaker Unified Studio is an IDE, for example? Is that a correct understanding?
I would say that a piece of that is correct, right? It is like a unified studio experience, but it is more
All right.
than an IDE as well.
Okay.
You will have options to create your data lake or the lake house, and then you will have
Okay.
options to query that lake house, all of it within the unified experience.
Okay. That sounds cool. And then, okay, so the new SageMaker, it means like if, for example, I was coming from data engineering background, so I do write SQL, I write Python. I can do that in the SageMaker Unified Studio, right?
Mhm.
And since you say like it's combining that machine learning, the old SageMaker which running machine learning, it means like if I have a colleague data scientist, they will do that model development and GenAI development in the SageMaker Unified Studio as well. Am
That
I
is correct. That
okay?
is correct. So essentially, you have different personas, right? You'll have an administrator who would pretty much be creating the domain. You will have a data analyst. You will have a data scientist, and you will have like an app developer who's creating a Gen AI app, right? So these are the different personas. And if you're looking at a common platform to bring in all the data personas together, where the admin is the one who's going to create the domain and then will give access to the different personas who are going to work on the data, like from data cleansing and integrating the data, and also querying the data, validating if the data is all good, and then transitioning the data to create new apps, right? That could be you're solving a predictive problem with regards to machine learning, or maybe you're coming up with a next gen application using generative AI. All of this happens within the same platform, which is Amazon Next Gen SageMaker. Yeah.
Okay. So in regards of that, if can you like summarize like okay, if I have to know like what is the key capabilities of those Amazon Sage, the new Amazon SageMaker, would you able to share that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, broadly, from a key capabilities perspective, you have the Amazon SageMaker Unified Studio, right? That is going to be the core. So, if you
Okay.
are looking at my screen, you have the Unified Studio experience, which
Yeah.
we'll get into shortly. And essentially, when you create this domain, the Unified Studio experience, you get a URL, and this is the core, right? Where you are able to create different access stores to different data, and also query the data in a single portal, like instead of
Yeah.
moving through different systems. Essentially, if you look at data lakehouse, right, you
Yep.
you pretty much have S3 being the core, and also you do have systems like Redshift from a data warehouse perspective, or lake formation from a governance perspective, right? This is more of bringing all of it together as a central platform. And the other components next to the Unified Studio is going to be your SageMaker Lakehouse that unifies the data across S3 and Redshift. And you have the data and AI governance, right? When you bring in the data together, you want an integrated system to govern the data as well as create a governance structure, right? So for that, you have
Yeah.
Amazon SageMaker Catalog that is built
Okay.
on Amazon data zones. And then finally, with all of these structures in place, you also need some kind of a processing of the data, right? Where
Yep.
you analyze, prepare, integrate the data on analytics. And for that is where you use the open source frameworks on Athena, EMR, and Glue, all
Okay.
within the SageMaker Studio environment itself. And then from a model development, you can access different foundation models and also work with workflows with SageMaker AI. So we were talking about SageMaker AI previously, right? What was the original SageMaker? Now with this new SageMaker, you can access the original SageMaker as well. So if you're looking at,
Okay.
okay, what is the key difference, right? Essentially, if you're looking at build, train, deploy, you can still use the SageMaker, which is SageMaker AI. However, if you are looking at all these aspects of DataZone and also bringing up the analytics capability, querying everything in one single place, then you can use the new next gen SageMaker, through which you can also access the traditional SageMaker AI platform. And then finally, the other two components are this is the interesting component, right? Obviously, the question is going to be around generative AI, right? So, how about generative AI? So, with the new Unified Studio, you can also access Amazon Bedrock through the IDE within the Unified Studio system, which we will share shortly. And then
Yeah.
finally, when it comes to SQL analytics, you can gain insights from Redshift, as which is the most price performant SQL engine. So just to summarize, Lydia, you get
Okay.
the capabilities of all the different services that we spoke so far, right? From
Yeah.
DataZone to Bedrock to
Yeah.
SageMaker AI, Redshift querying, all of this. If you're looking at a single platform where you want to bring governance to the data and also have as a unified experience for different personas within your organization, then your go-to is the next gen SageMaker.
Okay. So if I have data in Amazon S3 or in data warehouse type of data, in Amazon Redshift. I can govern the data within the new generation of SageMaker. And it's not
That is
just the
correct.
data, but also my AI model as well.
Yep,
And then
that is
when,
correct.
let's say, like, okay, I got the access now, and then when I want to query it, I can still use it, the SageMaker Unified Studio as well. So I don't have to, like, okay, I have to install, like, for example, SQL Workbench or a DB for query data. I
Mhm.
just go to the Unified Studio and running my SQL analytics. And if I need to open Jupyter Notebook, I can also still do it in the SageMaker Unified Studio.
That is correct.
Correct. Okay,
That is correct.
that's great. So you mentioned like SageMaker uh, built in data zones,
Mhm, mhm.
but there will be a difference between both, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I got into this screen which you're seeing now,
Yeah.
where you see Amazon SageMaker and DataZone, right?
Yeah.
So again, here this is about the flexibility. If you already used Amazon DataZone, it is
Okay.
still available separately when you create. Let's say if you go in here and when you create an Amazon DataZone domain, you can create that separately. It's also available. DataZone is pretty much where you're creating the governance aspects for all your data uh, and creating an environment for your data systems. Yeah. However, when it comes to SageMaker Unified Studio, which is again built on Amazon Data Zone, that helps you discover data and put it to work with an integrated experience. So, through when I create it and show this to you, you will realize that the
Yeah.
data zone is where you, if you are creating a governance system where you want to discover, share data to different personas, that you could do it within the data zone. However, if you're looking to come up with the generative AI application, data processing,
Yeah.
and SQL analytics, that is where you use the unified studio,
Studio.
which is again built on top of DataZone. Yeah,
Okay, I still have a lot of questions, but I think like let's mix this up. Let's see like how it's in action. Like, do you have some
sure,
demo that you can show, like, so everyone can see like what does it looks like exactly what we
sure,
are
sure.
just talking about?
I will, because we spoke about multiple
Yeah.
personas, Lydia, I'll start with some persona, right?
Okay.
First, let's take a use case, right? In this case, you have a startup organization which is planning
Okay.
to create a custom application for end users, and they are also planning to implement some Gen AI capability. Let's say it's into healthcare segment, right? And
Okay.
in this case, I have an administrator who pretty much comes in, and the administrators plan to create a unified platform so that they already have data, some of the data in
Okay.
S3, some of the data on-prem, right? So this is the scenario.
All
Now,
right.
as an administrator, let's say that I'm the administrator and you are a sample persona who's going to, let's say, a data engineer, right? So
Okay.
I, as an administrator, when I come in, I'll log into the AWS console, and then here I'll go ahead and create a domain. This is like I'm starting fresh, right? Um,
Yeah.
and when I create a new SageMaker Unified Studio domain, I'll use a quick setup, and you can, for the demonstration purpose, we are just using quick setup. You can alternatively use the manual setup as well, especially when you're going to get into the details and you want to get into the
Okay.
nitty gritties, if you will. But just for the sake of fastness today, I'm just going to
All right.
use the quick setup. I'm going to give a name, and I'm going to leave the service role, which is for the domain execution as well as for domain service role. If you have used Amazon SageMaker in the past, very similar experience, right? I'll just give you a comparison. So this is the old way of doing it, right? When you used to use Amazon SageMaker, even today, if you're using it, the way you use it, go to domain, and then you will create a domain, right? I'm saying this to drive clarity, right? As we
Okay.
demystify, there's no big difference. Essentially, here also you'll have the same quick setup. You go into setup and then you give into the details. In here, pretty much the same details as you create. You give the details for the Unified Studio, and then you can select the VPC in which you want to deploy. Essentially, you need to pick up 3 subnets within the VPC, and for
Okay.
our case, we're using private subnets. I wanted to highlight that private subnets are recommended in this case, and not all the
Yeah.
functionalities available when you choose public. And then this is important. If you are planning to expand on the model access, right? We all know that if you used Bedrock already, Let me open up Bedrock as well in parallel. If you've used Bedrock parallelly, you know that the first thing that you have to do to access all the foundation models is to go ahead and give you access to those models, right? So here are the different models. And for people
Okay.
who are tuning in new, who do not know Amazon, what Amazon Bedrock is, Amazon Bedrock is our gateway, if you will, for different foundation models. Not only Amazon foundation models, but also the third-party foundation models. Like as you see here, multiple Amazon foundation models, different anthropic models, starting from Claude 3.5 Haiku to Claude Instant, Coher, your Meta, and different models, right? Mistral, Stability AI. So if
Yeah.
you're looking to access any of the foundation models, then your to-go place is Bedrock, right? So I'm going back to our conversation. So we were at giving access to the model. The first thing you'll do is you have to give access to different models, and the way that you'll do is within the Bedrock console, you go and edit model access and grant access. I have already given, but it's just a two-step process for you to just give access. Now, going back to our creation of domain process, right? Pretty much the same aspects where you give grant access, which will take you to your model access page that I showed you previously, and then here you will
Yeah.
give the access to different models. Once you do that, you can just go ahead and click on continue, and this is important. So um, normally when we talk about integrated environment or unified environment, right, we are talking
Okay.
about multiple AWS accounts, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to have multiple AWS account and you want to have a federated system where you want to provide access controls to different users, then your way to go is IAM Identity Center. This is not
Okay.
specific to Amazon SageMaker. IAM Identity Center is our mechanism to create users and grant access to users. So you might have a question, okay, what is the difference between IAM and IAM Identity Center, right? I'm used to IAM, I create IAM users. Now you're talking about IAM Identity Center, right? So IAM user, the core difference is that when you go to IAM, let me show that in console. I like to show that so that it's easy for us to understand. If you go to IAM, right? Essentially, you create users, you have roles, policies, right? This is all particular to this account, right? What if you, as a data administrator, you operate from a different account, or there is a role in a different account, right? So in that case, what we use is IAM Identity Center. And essentially, IAM Identity Center is where you will create an identity source, and then you will set up different users, create access to them. You have an access portal, etc., and then the users are set up. So, in for our case of demo, I've created a sample user. I've created multiple users. Let's take Raj for example, and Raj is a user. So in that case, I'm going to say when I create we were in this place, right? So when I create, the next step is
Yeah.
I've already created the user there. So when I say Raj, the user comes up here, and I'm going to say create domain. Yeah, I've already created a domain, so I'm not going to create it here. I'm going to cancel it, and after you create it, this is what you will see here. The domain will be listed. So I, as an administrator, have created a domain. I've given access to some of the users who may have to log in. Now I'm still not going into the unified studio. So Lydia, if you are an administrator
Okay.
who's working on data, right? Not the administrator for the domain, but let's say you're working as a data scientist, right? Data scientist
Okay.
or data engineer. You will pretty much get a URL like this that you're seeing here. So I, as an administrator, after I create the domain, I'll take this URL, I'll share it with you, and then you can go ahead and log in, which we'll see. That is the second part of the demo. The first part is I, as an administrator, what else I can do, right? I can add additional users here under user management. And if I want to create account association, that is like other accounts coming in here, right? I can do that.
Okay.
Blueprint, right? For people who are watching in as SageMaker Next Gen for the first time, the easiest way of knowing what are these components is next to Blueprint, you have an info, right? When you click on that, it is going to give you the details of what the Blueprint is. But essentially, Blueprint is nothing but this defines what are the different services or accesses or
Yep.
tools that you can get with that particular portfolio, right? And then project profiles. This is where you can associate blueprints so that when you create a new project, these profiles will be associated with those projects. And then Amazon Bedrock models. So this is where you previously saw the Bedrock models access given within the Bedrock console, right? As a second step, you may have to come in here within the models and also provide access to different models. So if you see here, I have come here and I have given or enable specific Amazon models. In the Bedrock console, if you've seen, you would have
Okay.
seen different models. I've give access to all the first party and third party models. But I, as an administrator for this domain within SageMaker Next Gen, I'm going to give access to you, Lydia, only to Amazon
Okay.
models, right? It is my choice, right? It's as an organization's choice that they can limit access to certain models, and you can do that here as well. So there is like two level of access controls.
Okay.
First, yeah, first you go do it in Bedrock, and then within each of the projects that you create, right, or the projects that you create within the domain, you can give access to those foundation models. Yeah.
So first, before when you create a domain, you provide like what foundation model you can access. But once the
Mhm.
domain created, you can even like limit those that you already created within the domain. You can limit like which domain that the data scientist can access.
Correct. So
Okay.
what you gave previously, essentially this screen, right? If this screen,
Yep.
under Bedrock, you gave model access, right? So this is all the access to different foundation models through Bedrock. That is the baseline requirement. So you have an access to all these models that I've given. The second level of access is that for this particular account, right? In this case,
Yep.
we are just taking a sample account, but it could be any account, right? For this account in US West region, for this domain that I've created, I am further restricting. I can go ahead and give access to other models also, but it is to my discretion. I can decide which foundation models are to be accessed by this particular account in this domain.
Okay.
Cool. So that is on the Bedrock models. Next, you can create Git connections. And then the
Okay.
cool thing is you can also enable queue. So I'll tell you how this is going to be helpful for you as a user or a data scientist, right? But here, as an administrator, I can enable queue and then I can add different tags. So that's in a nutshell, I, as an administrator, can go ahead and create as a domain. And then the next step is that I will copy this URL and I'll share it to you. Now I'm going to switch to a different screen, Lydia. I'm going to go to a incognito window so that you get that experience, right? Like when I give that URL to you,
Yep.
how would you access that? So let me share my
Okay.
other
While
screen.
you try and share a screen, so like in the past as data engineer or data analyst, if we want to query something, we go to AWS console and we have to do that configuration things ourselves for startups example that you have. But now like you can have like cloud admin that provide all those things for you. So my job as data engineer or data scientist just log into the URL and then do analyze the data, like explore the data. I don't have to worry about like setting up those like bedrock model foundations or anything like access control. That will
Correct.
be the admin side. Okay, that makes sense.
Correct. Now, when you log in, you will be asked for a username, password, and as I said earlier,
Yeah.
we created an IAM Identity Center user for Raj, right? So I logged in, and you just have to use that URL, and then it'll ask you for a username and password, and then you'll be able to sign in. So for a best experience, let me show that as well. I'm going to sign off, and this is the URL that you got, right, from Raj, the administrator, and then you go ahead and click on sign in with SSO, and it is going to ask you for a username, and I'm going to give Raj. This is the username that I created in IAM. Yeah, and then I'm
Yeah.
going to give my password.
Well, you log in, there's so many people saying hi from all over the world. Remember that you can always ask questions, so pop your questions in the chat. And sorry, carry on, Raj.
Yeah, absolutely. Please go and ask your questions if there's anything that we want to dive deep or clarify. Happy to do that. So, Lydia, now it's Lydia who's logged into the console, right? A data
Okay.
scientist or a data engineer
Yeah.
or data analyst, right? Now, after you logged in, you have options to create projects that you can work with. And what you see in front is some. I'll go through the high level options, right? You have options to use a data catalog,
Yeah.
different bedrock models, some glossaries, metadata from, and then when this is more of you're trying to explore or discover, if you will, right? So in that mode, you have these options. Okay, what is chat playground, what is an image video playground, etc.
Yeah.
And then you are in a next mode, which is like after you discover or you explore, you go and start to build, right? So if you're in a build
Okay.
mode, there are multiple options in here. We'll touch upon two or three specifically. We'll get into the details, but essentially you have, if you're looking at, this is answering to your question. Is SageMaker Studio an IDE? Is something that you asked,
Yeah.
Lydia, right? So it is an IDE plus much more. So this is that component of IDE, right? You can use Jupyter Labs, same experience as what you would get with SageMaker AI, right? And then when you are looking at querying your data, right? You don't
Yeah.
have to move out of this console, go into Redshift or Athena to query your data wherever it resides, right? Let's say it resides in S3, and then you're using Athena to query. You don't have to
Yeah.
go out of the console. You can do that within the query editor. And then if you're looking to build orchestration, we'll talk about workflows and ML pipelines. And then this is the interesting part, right? When you're looking at creating machine learning predictive capability, or if you're working on generative AI, you can access different app development environments like creating a chat agent, Flow, or your apps that you
Okay.
created. And similarly, from a model development perspective, Jumpstart models. Yeah, just for new users, Jumpstart is SageMaker Jumpstart is a library or repository of different models when it comes to machine learning as well as generative AI. So if you're looking to access some of the foundation models, you can also access through SageMaker Jumpstart. Previously, we saw Bedrock, right? Bedrock is
Yeah.
one way. That is one way of accessing. But if you're already accustomed to SageMaker and you want to customize some of the foundation models and use those within SageMaker, then SageMaker Jumpstart is your other gateway into different foundation models. And then you can create training jobs, inference, like after you create the training, that is after the build, you pretty much take it into production, right? The machine learning pipeline. In those cases, you
Yeah.
can create an inference endpoint, and then you can create or monitor your compute clusters for ML training using Hyperpod. And then you have some options for AI ops as well. If you're looking to evaluate, for example, if you're looking to evaluate multiple foundation models, you can go through the model evaluation or store your models within your model registry. I just wanted to cover at a very high level, right? As a snapshot, what options that
Yeah.
you have, and we will get into the details. Yeah.
I'll pause you there. There's a question from Zivsko Todorov. Sorry if I spell your name incorrectly. Do you have to set up interface endpoint? I don't think we do because it's generated
Inference endpoints,
interface endpoint.
interface endpoint. For what, if you can give me a little more details,
Okay.
interface endpoint for?
Zivko, if you can clarify a question, is it inference endpoint or is interface endpoint? I mean, this interface endpoint or inference for machine learning endpoint? And another questions, just a quick one. I am new here. It is official AWS stream. Yes, AWS dashboard looks cool. We're covering the next generation of Amazon SageMaker. So stay tuned. Raj will go through a bit more detail on how this bring all data persona to work in the same unified experience.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
carry on,
But
Raj.
I'll clarify that question in two folds, Lydia. So if you're looking at VPCs, then that comes under the domain creation process. You cannot do it at a project level, but when I as an administrator created the domain, I can associate the VPC. So that is where your networking interface lays. If you're looking at inference endpoints, that I believe you're referencing to SageMaker inference endpoints, right? So you can do that here from the console of the Unified Studio. From here itself, you can directly go to the SageMaker inference endpoints here. Cool. Now let me continue. But if there is additional question coming in, Lydia, or additional clarity from the user, let me know. I'll answer. But for now, let me continue. Yeah.
Okay.
So you as a user, like Lydia has logged in as a data scientist, Lydia can go ahead and browse different projects that are already created or create a project. The first thing that Lydia will do is that create a project. And in here, if you remember, there were certain blueprints and project profiles we associated with the domain. They will be listed in here. And for each of the project, depending on what you're going to do. Say, for example, you're going to do data analytics and ML model development, which has multiple tool systems in here. If these are the tools that you are going to access, you can select that project profile. Or if your interest is into generative AI application development, right, then you can choose that one. Or if you're pretty much into SQL analytics, you can take that. This is the first one, which is like data analytics and AI ML model. That's
Yeah.
more of a generic one, which includes both Gen AI as well as some of the data analytics aspect. So you can select that. I'm going to leave all of this same. I'm just going to continue. And here is
Okay.
where you will give different options in terms of the Lakehouse database, what is the GlueDB name, and the work group name, and also if there is a Redshift serverless system that you're going to connect to. I've already created, so we will go there and see that. So that's
Okay.
pretty much. After that, you would just create it. The same steps I went through previously to save some time,
Okay.
and I've created, and this is how the project looks, right? The first thing is you log in, you create a project, and then this is where the project parameters are. These are the project details, profile parameters, and the different connections. Now the question becomes, okay, I have created the project, so what are the things that I could do, right? So for example, let's say that you are working on creating data, right? Or probably referencing data. The options that you have is, I'm going to make this smaller. When you go into overview, under overview, this is what we previously saw, which is pretty much the project details, profile parameters. And in
Yep.
data, you have Lakehouse, you have Redshift, and you have S3. Right? These are the different options that you can
Okay.
connect to. And essentially, if you are asking a question about, okay, what is this lake house that is built on top of, right? If we all know about Apache Iceberg, that is the basis. Like in traditional RDBMS, the organization of data that is managed by the database system by itself, right? However, in context of big data, we shift away from the RDBMS and instead turn to the data lake built on object stores such as S3, right, which are designed to handle vast amount of data. So that becomes the core, essentially SageMaker Lakehouse that is built on top of Apache Iceberg, if you will. And that is for the ease of data management, governance structure, and essentially how the overall architecture is like. If you look at the data access flow, right at the bottom layer,
Yep.
you have a data layer, and then a metadata layer, and then the Iceberg catalog. I'm referencing to the Apache Iceberg data access flow. So
Okay.
that is pretty much to have some kind of a metadata layer inference instead of just going that. This is more from a performance perspective, as well as the unification or getting all the data together.
Okay.
The second aspect is compute, right? One is data, the other one is compute. So if you are looking to add compute resources, say for example, I want to connect to an existing compute resource, then I can select Redshift provision cluster or Redshift serverless. So if you already have Redshift serverless, you could just go ahead and give the URL. I've already created a few, so I can give the URL, the username, password, and then connect to the Redshift system, right? That is on the data warehouse. Data processing on the other side, when it comes to analytics, if you will, right, when it is around EMR. So in those cases also you can create EMR clusters. So previously we saw about how you can connect to existing. In this case, let's see how you can create. So let's say I'm going to give EMR serverless, and then I give a name, test. I just leave test, and I'm going to say EMR 5.0 at compute, right? Uh, as you see, I didn't move into EMR console. I never went into Redshift as well. I see all the interfaces in here. So I have connectors through which I can connect, right? So that is the unified experience that we are talking about. So this is all like I create these resources. Now, the next question that you might ask is, hey, how do I go about querying? Right? How do I have my data? So how do I access this data? How do I know what is there? What is the data that is available? So if you go into data, you have this S3, right? And you also have this lakehouse. In here, I think I stored it some way here. Let me see. Yeah, sales and performance. So this is a CSV file that I uploaded. And let's say I want to query with Athena. So I say, go ahead and run this query. Yep, all I did is query with Athena. Hopefully the connection is still alive. If it is not terminated, I'm sure that it's going to give us some results. Yeah.
While waiting, there's a question. There's two questions. One is when we handle data and AI up at one place in Sagemaker, I
Mhm.
assume we reduce the friction of handling data and development services separately. Am I right? You're
Absolutely,
right.
absolutely. That is the core. We spoke about discovery build, right? We didn't touch upon govern unit. So when we are talking about one account, that's a different ball game. But when you're talking about organizations with hundreds of accounts, thousands of accounts, then managing the data, managing access to the data becomes challenging. And that is where the unified studio experience comes in handy, the domain managements, right? So if you look at the domain management here, you can associate different accounts. You could create blueprints and restrict who can access. But I'm getting into the nitty gritties. But to answer to the user's question, absolutely, that is the core. And as you move forward, when you are creating new apps, having a controlled environment to the data, and also having like a single place, right, where
Yeah.
where you have all the data, and more importantly, to enable collaboration, right? You need to have a mechanism where you bring in different users, different personas, and they all should have access to the data. But maybe not the same level of access, but someone might need a read access only, someone might have a full access. So you govern that structure, and this is where you do all of that governance.
Thank you.
So as we were talking about that question, the results came up. So this is how you quit, right? So I had a data that resides within the lakehouse, which is pretty much a CSV file, and I wanted to query. And in simple click of a button, I can select the data. I can just run a query. Now the question becomes, what if I'm going to query with AWS manage query engines, right? So in that case, let's say first thing is I go ahead and select under Lakehouse. I go and select public. Yeah. And in here, I'm going to say, I'm going to create a new query. I think I already created a query. First, we will start with Athena Lakehouse. So here is Athena. So the way I will create the connection is pretty much after you saw how I went in here, right? Pretty much build and query editor. After you come to query editor, under data explorer, I went into Lakehouse, and from here, I'm going to select Athena Lakehouse, retail, and in here, I'm going to select public, right? And then I'm going to run this query. And basically, I'm going to select the product IDs, which I wanted to group by total revenue. So the first one is I wanted to use Athena Query Engine to query the data. And let's see how the results come up. Yeah. Yeah. So it is able to query. And as you see, Lydia, I didn't move out of the console in here. So far, I'm staying pretty much within the console. There are only few things that you may have to do, which when I go back to the console, I'll show you. But essentially, to query the data, create compute, create the
Yeah.
data, all of this you can do it in here after the domain administrator have created the user. The other thing is, if you want to, what you saw here is pretty much Athena, right? Now, what about Redshift? We also spoke about Redshift. Um, can I use Redshift as a query engine? Yes, absolutely. So all you do is the same aspects of what you did. I'm going to use the
Yeah.
same query, but the change here is I'm going to say Redshift within Redshift when it loads. I have to bring up the dev retail data, and this is the schema that I'm going to choose, and I'm going to run it. Now you see the difference, right? Previously, the connection that we used was through Athena. Now the connection is through Redshift. So you can use the Redshift query engine to do it. The other option that you let's wait for a few seconds before it brings up. But the third option that we've got is EMR as a query engine. And we
Yeah.
all know for EMR, we use Jupyter Labs. So for that, the way that you will use is go to build Jupyter Labs. I think for any of the data scientists, this would be invalid request a new, please send URL. Okay, let me see if this loads. Yeah, it's connecting to the workspace. Hopefully the workspace didn't terminate. I created this before the demo. Yeah, maybe I think the workspace has terminated, but I can show how essentially it would look like.
Okay. While waiting, I missed out the question. It's more about machine learning. How does SageMaker simplify ML model lifecycle from training to productions?
Come again, Lydia. How does
So,
SageMaker simplify ML
right,
model?
ML.
I'm reading that question from
Sorry.
training to production. Yeah. So when you look at, say, let me go back to my screen. I think it's easier to demonstrate it in the screen. I'm going to stop sharing. Present. Can you see my screen?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, we just joined. Roger Simone trying to show like how the SageMaker can simplify the machine learning model lifecycle. So from the training
Yeah.
part to productions. If you missed most of the session today, there will be a recording available. So don't worry about it.
Can you see my screen? Yeah.
Yes, it's a
Cool.
Jupyter Lab
So
now.
yeah, so I moved to SageMaker AI, right? So we drive clarity here. What we are trying to demystify the session is more around the differences between SageMaker AI and the next gen SageMaker. So to answer this question, how does SageMaker simplify the ML model lifecycle from training to production? All of this is still available with SageMaker AI, and through the new or next gen SageMaker, you can access these features, and it is pretty much the same. Essentially, if you look at your Jupyter Labs, this SageMaker Studio environment, as well as the experiments, right? Typically, the way that you will start any ML workflow or a project is like you first go ahead and cleanse the data, keep the data ready, and then you go ahead and query the data to see if there are any issues with the data, etc. Right? All the data related activities, and then you get into algorithm selection, machine learning,
Yeah.
choosing the right algorithm, and then you come up with the prediction model, and then you train the model, and then finally you deploy the model in production, and then you run into inferences, right? So SageMaker has steps for each of these aspects. Right now I'm in Studio, but I can go out of Studio to explain. I just wanted to drive that clarity, right? So if you look at SageMaker Studio, you have your IDE, which is your Jupyter Labs environment. You have the code editor in here. If you're looking for a no code visual interface for
Yeah.
creating machine learning models, that is through Canvas, you can go ahead and prepare, train, you can predict outcomes, and then you can automate the workflows, the entire machine learning pipeline, right? Right now it is stopped, but essentially, if I run this, you can create machine learning models with a no code environment. If you're working with business analysts and people who are not really machine learning engineers or machine learning scientists, right? Canvas is a excellent option for them to get started
Right.
with a no code environment. Alternatively, let's say you are a machine learning engineer or data scientist, and you want to do a kind of a experimentation, right? Or rather, I want to do a kind of a autopilot mode. So you can do SageMaker experiments, which is pretty much, it will go and pick the right algorithm for you,
Yeah.
run the model, and then give you the predictions out of it. Who asked the question? Hicham, does that help? If not, let me know. I can definitely explain it a little further as well.
I am conscious of time, so let's carry on with the demo
Sure. Great. So let me, I was talking about the other way of doing it,
through Jupyter Notebook.
Jupyter.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I have that Python notebook. I took a backup just in case if I were going to be signed off. So I'm going to present my IDE. You don't have to do this in the IDE. I'm just showing it in the IDE, right? So this is the EMR way of querying. When you open the Jupyter Labs there, right, within the studio environment, all you have to do is to run, let's say, are you seeing my are you seeing
Yes.
my code window? Yeah, cool. So I go and check which is my account, what is the region, right? And then essentially I'm going to run it locally as a PySpark environment, which is local to this EMR. So if you look at it, I'm previously I was running this on the generic environment, but this one is specifically I created. If you remember, we created a serverless environment, right, in EMR, and I'm going to create the connection to that serverless environment here, and then I'm going to run this query, right? So all of this, for the sake of demonstration, I'm showing it here. But essentially, if you look at it, all of these activities in terms of querying through EMR query engine, etc., you could still do that within the same console environment. Yeah.
Okay. That's really nice. So, like, if I'm SQL developer, I can do in Unified Studio. Let's say I'm data engineer, I like to write Python. I do in Jupyter Notebook, but also in the SageMaker Unified Studio. And I don't know if you have like a very quick demo. Like, if I want to develop a Gen AI applications,
Mhm.
how
Absolutely.
can I do
I
it?
will
I assume I can do
that
it in Unified Studio too. But like,
yes.
how does it looks like?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. That is the last component of the demo that we wanted to see, which is
Are you going to share your screen?
yeah. I'm
Everyone who
going to
just
share my screen.
joined, we're talking about the next generation of Amazon SageMaker that essentially your data scientist, data engineer, SQL developer, all your data persona can work in the same workspace, get the same data. And this is the last demo that Raj will show, like how your Gen AI developer or the Gen AI engineer can also develop Gen AI application within that unified studio.
Yep. Cool. I'm going to do two things, right? When it comes to generative AI, I'm going to stick on to the same project data analytics. And in the build phase, right, we were using this query editor previously, right? If you remember, this is where we were querying through different managed engines, right? Now, what if there is a data? Yeah, I have this data, right? I have this data, which is, or maybe let me go to, I uploaded a data in S3, which is under files. Okay, there is a retail sales performance data, and I want to know the, consider any sales performance, right? I wanted to know what is the highest sales, and I am not good with queries. So all I can do is, you see a small Q icon in here. I'm going
Yep.
to use that, and I'm going to ask a question: find the highest sales. Okay, it has some difficulties in connection. But essentially, when you ask that question, you should be able to get the query response, and then you should be able to populate that query in here, and then you should be able to get the response from there. Let me refresh this just in case there is a connection.
Okay, that sounds super simple. We almost on the top of the hour, and I think I have to stop in here. Of course, like there's so many things in Unified Studio because imagine like it's all the data personas going to work in here. There's so many features in it, and 1 hour to demo this is not enough. And we will have another sessions, probably
Yeah.
Raj, if you okay to like join us another sessions to show
I will just
specifically
show, I'll just show one thing very
specifically.
quickly, Lydia.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
yeah,
One thing very
no
quickly,
worries.
because you asked for it. This is the most, this is an interesting part, right? So when you go to Discover and go to Generative AI and click on Chat Playground, right? So this is where you can select all the models. Say, for example, you can choose Nova Pro, and you can just say, develop a tic-tac-toe game in a single HTML file.
Yep.
Here it is, and you should be able to get the file. You should be able to run this. I mean, I'm just taking a tic-tac-toe, but anything, you can quickly get started with like one or two buttons. So within SageMaker Studio, it's like Discover, Chat Playground, and then you can get started with it. Yeah. That's about it, Lydia. Yeah.
That's very easy. If I sum up, like so, once again, all your data persona can work in SageMaker Unified Studio. If you're thinking about the old SageMaker, it's still there as SageMaker AI, the feature part of the umbrella of the new SageMaker. And I know some of you asked a lot of questions that we haven't answered. Please put the comment in our community page so we can answer it, or ping Raj in LinkedIn and so on so we can also answer it. Make sure next week you still tune in the same time, 4 p.m. GMT. We're going to have a topic for data engineers. You're going to like this because it's about, let me double check. The topic is about Apache Spark. So, how you accelerate your data engineering with Rapid Accelerator for Apache Spark on AWS. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. It will be available online for the recording, so you can watch again from the beginning. It's really great to have you here, Raj. We're definitely going to have you again because we want to
Yep.
see more in this new SageMaker Unified Studio. Thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everyone who just awake. See
Thank
you
you all.
again. Thank you all. See you all again next week.